Europeans better protected these days than back then?
Basically, no actions resulted from that other than a lot of paperwork. And that is a bit the problem we have in Europe. We do have these laws, but the enforcement of it and serious consequences are not done. So on the case specifically, it was about the NSA under US law having enormous powers to kind of just take data from Google or Microsoft or, all the big tech companies. And the interesting thing that the US does, it basically says that this type of surveillance is unconstitutional under the Fourth Amendment to the US Constitution, but the Fourth Amendment only protects Americans. So basically they say if your data lands with, let's say, Google or Microsoft, the big question is, are you American or not? If you're American, such type of surveillance is unconstitutional. If you're not American, then basically they can do whatever they want to do. There are certain limitations and some guidelines, but they're very superficial limitations. And that's a huge problem from a European perspective because most of our IT cloud infrastructure, at least, is right now imported from the US. And so far, the idea was, we're allied and we're partners and we're friends anyways. But especially the last couple of weeks, it became more and more apparent that the US more sees Europe as an enemy than necessarily a friend in all cases. So it increasingly becomes a question of dependence, which is unfortunate. We would generally want to have a, rule of law system where we can trust that our data is protected even if it goes abroad, and therefore we can just have international data transfers as we should. But that reality, especially in an increasingly nationalistic approach from the US side especially, becomes more and more problematic. So there is a lot of discussions in Europe about what they call digital sovereignty. I don't necessarily like the word, but the idea of being able that at least your core services are run in your own country so that you're not shut down. To give you a very simple example, I'm now invited a lot to Denmark, and I was wondering about that. And in Denmark, they have this conflict with the US about Greenland. So suddenly the Danish, being like 5 million people, had to worry that, Trump in some of his erratic craziness moments is just going to shut down or embargo Denmark over Greenland. And that would mean that they would have to shut down all the Microsoft in school, all the hyperscalers that are under hospitals, and so on. So half of the country would suddenly be shut down. That is not anything that I think is likely tomorrow to happen, but it becomes increasingly a possibility. And even just a 1% possibility in that breadth of consequences is something that people take more seriously now. Unfortunately, we have to stress that. Not anything we like, but it's a reality that we have to face.